I want to thank everyone who is helping us in so many ways, especially helping us pay the bills here financially. We couldn't do this without your help. We don't generate products or, for that matter, even services in the conventional sense of sending out billing. So this is done by your generosity, by Donna. If you want to help us, and that's what I'm asking for, is your help. So please continue, if you can. It's very situational. Some people can't do that. If you can, please help. Pushing away thoughts. We try to do that in some way, or we do that in different ways. We try to ignore what is arising in the mind stream. Whatever is arising in your mind stream at any given moment is dependently arisen. That means there's no real thinker there. We add that on. The consciousness, that is the paranoid area of the consciousness, which not everyone has that. And everyone has that to a different extent. Some people are extremely sealed up. If they're really sealed up, then all you'll see coming out of them is judgment and aggression and pushing and pulling, not just here, but they're not trying to fix themselves or correct themselves. They're trying to validate their ideas, their opinions, their political stance. They're validating statements like, well, that's the way I was raised. That's how they validate it. It's no validation for anything. So in order to see that you're even doing such a thing as pushing away thoughts or shoving down your emotions or trying to get some kind of space or some kind of open area where you're not perplexed or hurt or have anxiety. Consciousness is very, very complicated because it does not have a location. It is located here. It has locations in the sense of having eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, of course. But fundamentally, it doesn't rest anywhere. You can't find consciousness. It doesn't manifest as an item. It manifests in the sense that it shows up as awareness in terms of the organ, if you call it the mind or the eye or the ear, and it has it in terms of the so-called apparent object over there. It could be an object across the room, and it could be an object that's arising in your mind. Two completely different kinds of manifestation. The manifestation across the room is very solid and very other. It's emphasized. It's over there. You can walk away from it. But you can't walk away from thoughts. And if you attempt to do that, then it creates circularity or confusion, depending on the style that your particular karma is supplying you with, or something you're picking and choosing could go that direction also. This is why I emphasize over and over again, be aware. You don't have to come to a certain kind of thinking or a certain way of thinking, just have to be aware. And the temptation to push aggression or the temptation to pull passion, which can show up, that pulling can show up as elaborating on something. As soon as you see something arise, you have anything, the first thing you do is name it. As soon as you name it, you cover it up. That is the unwillingness, not only to see what it is, but the willingness to try to control it. And is there something wrong with controlling? No, it's just when we overdo it. It's okay to name your dog. It's okay to see a piece of something is standing in the ground to call it a fence post. So we need some of that, but the ego mind, the self-centered mind, the selfish mind, the greedy mind, the passion, aggression, and ignorance that rotates around the singularity that is unreal, that we think is me or ourselves, we tend to overdo it and come up with not just the naming, but then the ideas, the philosophy, the propaganda around this is this and that's that, and this is why we have private property, why there are lines. Perhaps we should have that, I don't know. Need some kind of a boundary, otherwise you would be at the mercy of everybody's craziness. So the way to work with that is to be aware that that is happening. And that is difficult. The only way I know of, I'm not saying there aren't 15 or 20,000 other ways, sit down, hold still, sit symmetrical, do something with the whole body-mind complex that you have some say-so over that, some say-so over that does not further add to the imbalance or asymmetry of the mind that wants to push on this, pull on that, shut down on something else, that wants something else. There is no else. Don't believe me, don't believe anyone. Don't believe your own thoughts. Don't believe, but look at it so that you see, so you get your own authority for that. So you see it. You don't look to somebody up in the sky or somebody sitting on a ton like I'm doing. Get your authority from no one. Don't believe anything. Don't disbelieve anything. Don't ignore anything. It's that simple, and that really, really hard to do because we come into this lifetime with tons and tons, gallons and gallons, miles and miles of otherness that we think we need to fix, correct, ignore, or something with it. Called karma. The word action. It needs to be seen, not gotten rid of. Seen, not joined. Seen, not ignored. Those are the three, which I talk about just about in every talk. Bunyo was asking me, she's been listening to some old tapes of my teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And he was talking about the fourth moment and asking me what is the fourth moment? I said, well, I don't know. What did he say it was? And then I asked you, what were the first, second, third moments? And what did you say?
Past, present, and future.
Past, present, and future. So what did I say was the fourth moment?
There are no moments.
No moments. But we have to say something. If we see something, if through your practice, through your spiritual practice, whether you're a Buddhist or whether you're a student of Carlos Castaneda, I don't care. I was a student of him for the first three books. What are you laughing at, Michael?
It was just so familiar.
Oh, okay. I forget how old you are sometimes. So past, present, future, and the fourth. You understand? If not, return to the wall. If not, return to the teaching, return to the teacher, return to what is being taught, return to the community, return to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, fancy words that come out of the ancient past that give us some kind of a structure so we can work with this hamster cage in our mind. If you think you don't have one, then, well, maybe you don't. But thoughts won't tell you that. Having no thoughts is a misunderstanding of how to work with a thought process. I'm not going to get rid of thoughts. There are no thoughts. You cannot get rid of an illusion. The very nature of an illusion is to be illusionary. Is that a word? Illusionary? Elusive. Illustrative? Illustrative. Okay, we're going to give up right there. So the fourth, beyond the fourth. I'll go back one more time around what I'm trying to recommend that you do. If you think of me as a teacher or your teacher, or you think of what you're here, so you must think of, you might hear something important here. I'm saying, please spend some time, find some time. I don't care how difficult it is. Get to the wall, get to a place where you're holding still, simply put. Don't even call it shikantaza. Call it a Vulcan. Call it a clothesline. Call it a broomstick. Call it anything, but hold still. All the senses are open on receive, and watch what moves until you see the truth. You probably won't see the truth while you're sitting, because it seems to be necessary to be looking at some kind of a form that's arising in your space, in the space in which you live, or your family, your society, your culture, your relationships. That's usually where it's found. Not always. And what do you find? There isn't anything. Everything is empty of other. There's no other. Everywhere you look, you see this, and you're no longer deluded by it. Why? Because you see that it's an illusion. It's unreal. It's unreal. I'll give you a little bit of a personal example. It's personal to you, not to me. Nothing's personal to me. But remember when you were 5? Where is that? That was very, very vivid. Remember when you were 10, on your 10th birthday. Remember how vivid that was at the time. Gone. Even getting out of bed this morning, assuming you sleep in a bed. Some of you sleep in hammocks. Is that one person here still sleeping on the roof? Huh? Oh, that's a cat, Strawberry. Sleeping on the roof, sleeping on the top of the garbage can, right? It's cooler there. Very situational for cats. It's comfortable everywhere. So if you can find some time, spend some time, make some time, even if it's difficult, use a clock. One of these. This is a wrist clock. Haven't seen those yet. Don't use your phone. Use your phone to call your friends and text your enemies. Nobody's smiling, so apparently the sound went off. Take your time, but make sure you get to it. Make sure you sit down, hold still, and watch. And sit for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Train your mind to see this. This is not something to believe in. This is something to see clearly. And anyone who is here listening to this, what is being said here, is ready to hear this. It's dependently arisen. We create a further illusion of a monastery, a further illusion of a sangha, a further illusion in order to have a form that is operating in the primary illusion, which is you think you're somebody, you think this is something else that shows up in that area, so you can hear this kind of a message from someone who is no longer here. This body is here, vaguely, but it's still here. But there's no solid being here anymore. I could not speak this way if this was coming out of some kind of centered idea, some authority person with a fancy whatever, or semi-fancy. I haven't gotten around to wearing brocaded rock suits yet. Can I have a brocaded one?
Not yet.
Oh,
It can be arranged.
don't send me one. Send me a black one. Then I'll wear a white shirt. Are there any questions about what it is I'm talking about, pointing at? Please give me some questions. Thank you.
Sure, allowing, if we're acting out of a thought, is that a way of pushing it away?
Somewhat. It's a very, very general, so it's going to be slightly different. That's why it's so important to watch the thoughts. If you watch the thoughts, observe the thoughts, sense the thoughts, think the thoughts, just allow those to come and go. This is what sitting practice of meditation can train you, help you to do. Even other forms of sitting meditation like shamatha, vipassana, and so on can help you also. Dzogchen, Mahamudra. I'm not going to teach those, but I'm not here to say those, you shouldn't do those. If you have a teacher, I'm all for that. Don't do it without a teacher. Don't read books on Mahamudra and try to practice it. Is there a spider crawling on me?
If so, I would like to know about it.
Huh?
I said, if so, I would like to know about it.
You like spiders?
Yes and no. I like them away from me.
No, kind of like thoughts. Those are nice to back away from, like a giant spider. I will let you know. I don't think it was one. I think it was my imaginary skin system malfunctioning and sending me information. You didn't really hear all this, did you? Sano?
Oh, of course I did. Are you kidding? I would listen to you read a grocery list.
Grocery list. No wonder you're an attorney. Go ahead, more.
Should I go bowing?
Yes.
When you're giving a talk,
Yes.
often I'm seeing all the thoughts that just come up in my mind as you're talking.
Yes.
If I'm trying to prioritize what you're saying over my thoughts, is that pushing those away?
Somewhat. Just have it be what it is. Don't necessarily go in and shuffle things around. Push it this way. More? Yes.
Is what you're saying including what's coming up in my mind stream around it?
Can't be separate. It's not separate. The illusion is that it's separate. The illusion is that I have thoughts and you have thoughts. There is no separate being anywhere. Thoughts just arise and they happen to find a body-mind structure that will operate in sometimes for many, many years, decades, until that body-mind goes down. And then that consciousness, there's no way to determine what's going to happen with it because it is dependently arisen. And you can't see all the dependencies. Countless dependencies are operating right now in your digestive tract. You cannot see them all. Science tries to get a hold of that and control it and invent things like the stuff that I take, Ozempic and what else? Farxiga and a whole bunch of other strange, huh?
Clopidogrel.
You sure it's not something dropping down on me? Clopidogrel, yeah, that's the fancy name. So just observe whatever, rather than try to find out, well, separate it out, do some kind of discrimination in there. Don't do anything, just receive it. If it comes to the door, it has a right to be there. Just a way of talking about it. It's dependently arisen, so just receive it. The downside of that is to the ego mind, the self-centered mind, the me and my territory, my ideas, what I think. That kind of thing that's happening there won't be supported by that attitude of when the consciousness just stops taking a position on anything. Then the identity, your actual identity, which is stuck in your ego, me, and what's going to happen next, and why I'm not getting my way, and I'm being mistreated, and all the other crazy soap operas that go on in our mind, constantly trying to figure things out and get somewhere. You cannot get anywhere, and you cannot figure anything out. But there again, if you think you can, maybe you could keep doing that. You can't even stop doing that, but you can see that you do that, and then it will run out of steam because you will just intuitively know where it's getting its fuel from. It gets its fuel from passion, aggression, and ignorance, from pushing, pulling, and shutting down. And you need to see that, not stop it. That's why it takes quite a bit of commitment, because it's much easier to just screw it. I'm just going to party down. I'll get some other friends that feel the way I do, and we'll reinforce each other's crazy stuff, and we'll start a skateboarding club. Well, it depends on how old you are. But that's quite you know about those. It's quite a strong community, isn't it? People who are skateboarding. Wouldn't you say so? I first heard about skateboarding 20 years ago from Chukadawa. More?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Georgios from Greece asks, with all of this, what about the wars going on?
So the wars are there, but look, what is the name again, Georgios?
Georgios.
So Georgios, look at it this way. It's not that you couldn't, if you're in a position where you can do something about the wars, then by all means, but that's like looking at a thunderstorm. When it's all the causes and conditions that cause a thunderstorm that are functioning in a track we call time, which is an illusion, but it's so very, very believable because our consciousness is located in the six sense fields and their objects. And it just affirms itself over and over and over. And we're not saying it isn't there. It's just that it's an illusion. So if you go towards all the wars in the world, not that you shouldn't, you should pay attention. You should watch the news, not too much, watch some of it. But look at what's happening so you can see, because it's like watching an avalanche halfway down the mountain. The thing was created, a millennia ago, but here it is coming down. You can't interfere with that in a way that's going to stop it. You can look at an asteroid, but you can't stop it. It's already operating in independent origination, creating a further illusion of otherness that is confusing, because it looks like we should go and do this or do that. And not that you shouldn't vote, you should participate in the avalanche where there is an opening to do that, where you personally can see that you could go in there, and up to and including becoming a state senator or something like that, where you feel like maybe you can help a little bit there. Not against that, but train your mind at the same time so that you don't take your unexamined passion, aggression, ignorance and inflict it on others. Be responsible for your emotions. Anytime you pull your finger out of the holster and aim it at anybody else and blame anybody for how you're feeling, this is an incredible misunderstanding. And it is one of the primary areas that create wars, not only across the kitchen table, but also in the world, in our country, in our state, where a couple of insane people were trying to kidnap our governor here a few years ago. So look at the avalanche, but don't necessarily join with the point of being some kind of a hero. You may see a place in that where you could maybe help. Maybe an organization would be something you could join. But get to the wall, train the mind. Again, I'll say it another time, so that what you are projecting on the world, the aggression you're projecting out there, be responsible for the aggression, the reaction to the aggression. Wars. And then first, look at this war. Look at the war right here in your heart center. That you may, not just you, Giorgio, but anybody may blame. Don't blame others for how you feel. Don't even blame yourself. There isn't one. There is no solid self here. In the five skandhas: form, feeling, perception, concept, consciousness. That does not add up to a self. If you think it does, then you've just described the illusion that you're deluded by. Further?
When you're bowing. So when we're on the cushion and thoughts arise, is there a correct way to receive those thoughts without compartmentalizing them and further solidifying our illusion?
Just what you're doing is you're practicing, you see what they are, but you don't necessarily do anything with them. There's a willingness to do that. Do it. This is why the path of the bodhisattva is there, so that you can have a way of working with your identity, where way before you really understand no self, no other, you're beginning to tune into this way of working with the world as the enlightening being, the being whose primary life is about helping others. And that may start out by first seeing how self-centered and angry and greedy you are. You start doing the sitting practice of meditation, you're not going to be too happy with what your identity has been so far. But continue anyway. This is why we have a teaching, and a community. The basic teaching here is everything is dependently arisen. There's not a singular person anywhere. That is an illusion, including this one. This one is not here. The body is here. There's some identity happening here. Otherwise, I couldn't eat breakfast. But it's not. But there's no demand for anything. I could say I don't care what happens, but I don't miss what happens. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it in your mind stream as you come this way. I'm looking at my mind stream as I meet you, or as I meet anything, as I meet the cat on the roof. Strawberry. I'm looking at that. I'm not jumping into, well, Strawberry shouldn't be here, and why don't they take Strawberry to the cat farm or something. That does not occur. It's just that. You can do this, and it's not a doing, it's more like a non-doing. Your eyes don't belong to you anymore. Your ears, your hearing, there's no one hearing. There's just hearing. There's no one smelling. There's just fragrance or putrefaction. There's just that. Very, very simple. Very direct perception of what this is. You can do this. I encourage you to do this.
You're bowing. So when we come to you asking for help with our meditation, what is a helpful way for us to describe to you what is occurring during our meditation?
I don't know. Just tell me what's going on.
I guess what I'm asking, if everything is dependently arisen, then
Yes.
how can we adjust anything, any thought? You say that looking at it and then it'll just dissolve on its own?
I didn't say that. What is it you want to know? That's the best direction.
How not to fuel the thoughts?
Just watch the fueling. Good question. Just watch how some aspect of consciousness, and you can't locate it. You can't locate it like a spigot on a hose, or somebody to turn off the water or switch off the light or turn off the gas. So you can't locate it. It doesn't have location in that sense, but you can just watch it, and it won't be something like you say, oh, I see the way it's getting its fuel now, I'll just stop fueling it. Yet I have to speak about it that way because it has that kind of a quality to it. You notice that you're accepting, rejecting, or shutting down something, and that creates the illusion that we are deluded by, that we're somebody going somewhere and we've been abused. Not that you haven't. We've all been abused. Every human being, somebody's going to abuse you. I certainly was. So, but we get an identity out of that rather than actually saying those people, the people who abused you, the situation that abused you is also dependently risen. No one is really to blame for anything. There's no responsibility in the sense of blame. There is a responsibility in that you should respond to everything, not as a reaction, but just something shows up, receive it. That's your response. Just receive, just receive. Fundamental generosity is give everything your attention, receive it, so that you can realize your true nature, so you can realize before you pass back into the elements, you can see who this is. So you have no questions, even about your own death, which isn't even a death. It's just a change of venue. More.
Divine, is there an ignorance that can surround us when we're sitting, that we receive thoughts and don't really want to deal with them, so we park them somewhere?
No, you can create a kind of a haven. That's why I don't teach shamatha meditation or shine, because it's not that this always happens, but there's too much of a possibility of making a hideout there, of becoming getting a very subtle kind of identity called a meditator who actually is calmly abiding. I can say this very bluntly. I don't give a shit if you ever calmly abide. I want you to see the truth. And if I were to give that as a general teaching to everyone, and I'm not saying teachers do that. Sometimes they might give that teaching, and then when they interact personally, might change that teaching to fit that particular person's way of continuing their own confusion. But living up to a state of something is not so workable. And I'm talking about doing this practice, shamatha, shine, for many, many years, and teaching it to others because I was told to teach it by my teacher. Not wrong. It's not incorrect. It's a valid way of working with it. I'm just saying that if you're talking to me, I would rather that you start with what I started with him, which was no instruction at all. That's how he taught Shikantaza. He didn't tell you what to do. Sit down. That was it. Should I have my eyes open? Yes. But you didn't hear that information until you asked the question. Sanho, go ahead.
Sangha Bowing, will you say a little bit about not going to war with having to go to war? Sangha Bowing.
Not going to war with having to go to war? if you have to go to war, then just be very aware that how that kind of knee-jerk kind of reaction, or that you have to, there's some kind of other thing pushing you. Be aware that you're doing that rather than trying to go to war with war. That's trying to fight that so that you create a person who never goes to war. It's a very subtle area, and it seems that each person's awareness practice has to address that, just like yours would, or mine would, or anyone. Sometimes it will arise, to talk about it a little bit more specifically, it will arise that you're still going to war in your mind stream, but you're no longer locking and loading. You're no longer no one actually knows you're doing that, because you're no longer blaming anyone, including yourself. You're just feeling the war happen in your own mind stream. That would be a way of talking, instead of downloading that on the world or on your partner or on anybody, on something that occurred to you, that happened to you, that is the reason why you're feeling so bad. More, Sano?
No, not right now, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rehan from the UK asks, is sangha and dharma as important as sitting? Is a teacher important? Bowing.
So I'm biased. I would not be here if it weren't for those three, and if it weren't for the teacher, if it weren't for both of my teachers, I would not be sitting here. I may be sitting somewhere, and I may be not sitting at all. But yes, they're all important, and it will show up differently for different people. But generally, and as a generalization about it, say yes, the teacher, the teaching, and the community. They function in different ways, but it seems like you need some kind of a relationship to all of those. Though there are people, there are teachings and so on that don't have this kind of a structure, that they're probably people that are awakening to their true nature. I don't know any personally, but I'm not saying taking that away. It's possible. I don't know if I got to what you were looking for there. More specific would be good if there's something you want to know that I could respond to. Rehan.
Rehan bowing. Well, is this supposed to be, like fun?
It's supposed to be fun, but not like fun.
I'm confused about it at the moment.
I can tell. Ask me a more specific question.
Like who am I? Am I supposed to be serious, or
both serious and sense of humor too? But you can't create those things. You can't just generate that. That's not going to work. You have to be, the way I teach this, Rehan, is to just receive whatever shows up in the mind stream. You have it coming, not because you're guilty, but because it's the nature of dependent origination, pratitya samutpada. It's just the nature of that, to don't interfere with things based on your silly or my silly or stupid ideas about wanting to control things. If you get your own authority, you will see there is no authority. But consciousness only, or dependent origination, showing up as that, looking like the separations that are banging against each other all over the world, all over time and space. Just observe that. Stop separating yourself into some kind of tiny little person somewhere, even though that might be where you would need to start, as my teacher Trungpa Rinpoche said, like a grain of sand. Who you actually are, as far as relative world, is like a grain of sand. Nothing special.
I started this because I thought I would be sure about something after I sit a lot, but now I'm not sure. So should I keep doing it, or just
yes. Keep doing it, because not being sure is what happens with the ego. That part of consciousness that we are endeavoring to see or understand doesn't need any security blanket. You don't need security. I don't have any security. I don't have any proof for anything. And that doesn't mean that the thoughts have disappeared. I'm kind of beyond thought. Although there's something like that could be described, but it's not being at the mercy of anything. No demands, no requests. And so how long have you been sitting, Rehan?
About a year and a half now.
So give it another 20 or 30 years. You're a young guy.
Yeah, I could do it. I'm curious now. You have given me a lot of curiosity now. Keep going. Yeah.
Do you sit eyes open, shikantaza?
Yeah. My eyes are open. Uh,
Eyes
I
open?
don't. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was not worried about that too much anymore. They're open. Yeah. When I first spoke to you, it was a couple years ago.
Okay.
I was in a mess because I was very trapped, and I've really trapped. And you said, just keep sitting. That helped me a lot because I did sit.
Good.
Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you because I'm thankful to you very much for doing
Yeah.
that.
Good to see you again. Yeah. If it's helpful to you, keep return. If it's helpful. If it's not, do something else. Further questions? Yes.
Ross from Ireland asks, is saying that this is all an illusion the same as saying it's all dependently arising?
Yeah, it's a way of talking about it. Dependently arising just means there's no thing that is arising that is more important than any other thing that's arising, or anything that has arisen and is gone, is disappearing, or yeah, just a way of talking about it that was discovered thousands of years ago. No more.
Semi asks, why does my mind get bored easily, quickly? What even is boredom?
Boredom is the downside is it's boring. The upside is it's a sign that you're giving up on entertainment, and you should continue to do that. At some point, there won't be anyone who's bored. There's just boredom, and that's not a problem. Go ahead, Sano.
Sangha bowing. So as everyone knows, I'm terrible at being bored. I refuse to be bored. That's
Yes.
a problem. So do you teach to have people give up on entertainment, like don't watch, I think you liked South Park 10 years ago. Do
Yeah.
you teach people to not watch South Park?
I watch it if I remember to watch it. Usually I forget about it. I was just, Juzan just sent me a link. Was that South Park he sent me? Yeah, sent me a South Park link he thought I might be interested in, but now I've forgotten about where it's at. But it's in WhatsApp, isn't it? Yeah, so I can go there. Thanks for reminding me of that. I'll go look at that. But no, I think entertainment is fine. The thing that I emphasize is sit. Do whatever you need to do. I don't think it's really good to participate in too many heavy drugs or alcohol or anything like that, but I don't know what it's like to be you. You may need to do some of that. I would say probably less is better in all those areas. And the entertainment thing, yeah, enjoy yourself. Watch movies, or I watch the news for entertainment. So look at the confusion and see that people actually think it can be fixed. I'm not saying it couldn't be adjusted so socially we could get along a lot better. Of course it could, but it's quite an avalanche out there of insanity when people are voting. What is House was saying? Voting against their own best interest, but they don't know it's their best. They're deluded by the propaganda, so therefore they continue to process in a way that is meant to be respectful of people's intelligence. Instead, that respect for intelligence has been turned into confusion by those who want to control everyone, and it won't last. Everything dies, including oligarchs, except they get reborn. Any questions on Zoom? Any more on Zoom? Let's go with Chisho first, and then Navid, and then Gyokudo.
Vishwani, in your response to Shodo, you mentioned actual identity stuck or hidden in ego. What did you mean by that, Bhavin?
The actual identity is will appear that way until we see what it is, and then it's not stuck anywhere. It has no location. It doesn't actually exist. It's been said in the ancient times, and teachers in the past have tried to talk about it or point to it, so they call it non-exists, which of course, what the hell does that mean? Something non-exists. But it's just a way of talking about it. It's not stuck anywhere. Buddha nature, your awakened nature, has no location, but it may appear to have a location in the ego. So you may have to look at that ego situation until that cracks, comes apart, dissolves, or just doesn't do anything. It just kind of hangs around. Like, as I've said before, you don't have to get rid of something that is an illusion. It's an illusion, and just watch it come and go. It might come knocking at the door every now and then, and answer the door and invite him in. Or it's just unreal. So you don't have to be concerned about it. But if it shows up, then some dependent origination is still functioning in a way of going this way, going that way, showing up, disappearing. There's still some kind of rotation happening. And the ego mind will use that to try to maintain its life support system, to be part of your consciousness. That it's like, you don't want to get rid of me. I mean, you'll be totally exposed to everything. But what if you just don't have any ideas, opinions, you don't think, and you don't, oh my gosh, that would be really dangerous, wouldn't it? Yeah. Dangerous to ego, but not to your actual identity, which is not separate from anything anywhere. Don't believe anything I say. Listen to it, consider it. If it's helpful to you, go ahead. If it's not, do something else. Naveed, when you just reminded me that I had forgotten you, and she's about to remind me that I forgot Gyokudo also, but I have to talk to you before I can forget about Gyokudo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it the same consciousness that manifests as an object or as a human being? Is that the same consciousness?
Fundamentally, yes.
Yes,
But-
fundamentally.
Yeah, fundamentally. Things arise in consciousness and pass out of consciousness, but consciousness doesn't go anywhere. And the fundamental nature of the things that arise are not separate from consciousness. They just look like it. That's the illusion part that we think is real, that we are deluded by. So we grasp at things that come and go, but it'd be like standing in front of a tree and trying to grasp it, trying to find out which leaf is the best leaf. And they're all falling off the tree, so we want to make sure one of those leaves is better than all the rest. I can just find the right one with the right shape, with the perfect placement of a bug who ate a hole in it. We're starting to get a little bit creative and artistic here. Go ahead, Naveed.
So what makes consciousness to take the form of a human being?
Just causes and conditions. This caused that, but it's been going on for millions and millions of years. I mean, even time is kind of out of the question. Dependent origination showing up. It's happening with aliens. It's happening with us. It's happening in a galaxy far away. Who am I quoting there? But it's the occurrence, which is an illusion, which I don't know how else to say it. And I understand the question you're asking, but there's no specific response to that other than someone who wants to create some kind of response. But what you're asking, you need to see that. And I'm helping you when I say, sit down, hold still, look at the wall, and you find out what it is.
Thank you.
It's beyond it's beyond the fourth, the first, the past, the present, the future, and that moment, the fourth, which is inexpressible. It's beyond that one. And is it actually beyond in the sense of some kind of spatial reference or time reference? Well, you might have to work with that for a while until you realize that, as His Holiness the 16th Karmapa said when he was passing into parinirvana in 1981, nothing happens. Reflect on that for 30 years. Gyokudo.
Gyokudo bowing. It's kind of a two-part question. You've said that you don't think, well, very little. So what is does that mean that you don't elaborate on the thoughts that are dependently arisen? That's the first part, bowing.
Yeah. The things that are just like you by your question actually brought about thoughts to arise that can be moved into language. But there's not much else going on. It's not a preamble that says, make sure you don't make a mistake here. You're in front of a whole lot of people. What if you say something wrong? People will think you're a fool. Or think. I don't care what you think. I don't care what I think. But I don't miss it. If thoughts arise in this situation, I observe it. Not too much is happening there. Kind of empty-headed, you might say. Further question around that, if you have it, that's a good area to ask questions in. I don't often get those.
Yoko bowing. You've also said that there's no thinker. So when you do need to think, like you need to pay for something or go somewhere, do you assemble into a self in order to do that?
No, the very need to do this or that is enough thought comes up around that to decide what to do. And I just ask Unyo, like, what do you think I should do? I think you should go give a Dharma talk. So that's what I end up doing. More about that if you have it. Don't hesitate.
Yoko bowing. So if you have, if the thoughts that are dependently arisen, you're not pushing or pulling on them. But you've also said you can't help, just like we can't help doing that. Is that just an awareness that makes it not thinking?
Using your words, I would say yes. You're just aware of this move back down. Thoughts arise and look for a self, and they can't find a self. So most of the thoughts that arise come in the front door and go right on out the back door. And the ones that are situationally relevant, in other words, it's cold weather and I feel cold, so I need to get out of the cold. I need to get inside where it's warm, or I need to do this or that. I need to eat. I'm hungry. Chop wood, carry water is the Zen expression from ancient times, where before awakening, chop wood, carry water. After awakening, chop wood, carry water. It's just a way of saying that nothing really happens. It's just that there's no more delusion or self-deception. There's no more self to deceive. More?
No, thank you.
Yes. Further questions anywhere?
Mahesh bowing.
Mahesh.
So following up on the question that you could have asked, so sometimes during the talk when you say, oh, there is strawberry up, and then like you tend to like talk about that cat or something else, right? Like it seems a deviation from what you're trying to say. So what is happening there? Is it getting distracted or something else? Bowing.
Yeah, I'm addressing the deviations in your mind. That's your deviation. I haven't deviated from anything. Everything is different and the same at the same time. It's different. You're differentiating because you're looking for results. You're looking for, not accusing you of anything, but what even brings up the question, you're looking for some kind of an understanding that is beyond what I'm pointing at directly, which is strawberry or the cat on the roof. I sometimes call the ego the clown on the roof. It's still there, still has a funny nose, still tries to get my attention, and I don't care. Sometimes it hangs off the roof, jumps in the window, sometimes jumps right in my lap and might even say to me, I think I should be running this situation. You're getting us in a lot of trouble here. I said, well, what do you think? What do you think we should do? I don't kick the ego out. I listen to everything. I listen to you. I listen to everyone here. I probably am not obeying too many people, so very rare for someone to tell me what to do these days. Is that helpful? Is that helpful to you, or do you have a further question?
Yeah, thank you for Mahesh bowing. So when you sit, during the sit, how many times does it even happen that you caught up a thought and then you follow with further thoughts, or?
Talking about me?
Yeah.
I don't meditate anymore.
Like during the daily 6 p.m.
Okay, now what does he want to know? A thought comes up and you want to know what I do with it?
Like, does it, like right now for me, when I sit, I grab onto a thought and continue thought chain. This happens a lot during sitting. I'm wondering how does that change as you awaken or as you move?
So simply put, as simply as I can, there's just not any preference for anything. You don't care what arises in your mind. You're no longer threatened by evil thoughts. You're no longer seduced by wonderful, pleasurable, or promising thoughts. You're not operating in that way. At the same time, you're not ignoring it. So therefore, your mind can be clouded with all kinds of angels and demons. You've transcended the polarity of it. I don't have a credential here. I can prove that to you. And I'm not promising anything. I'm not promising that, oh, if you'll be beyond good and evil or something. I have no idea. I don't know what your karma is. You may have 15 more lifetimes of walking through clouds. I have no idea. That's not a prediction of anything. I'm just saying all I know is when you talk, I address you as clearly as I can from what I'm seeing in front of me. And that there are people here who are listening, but they're not really students of mine. They may never come back to this, or they may come back from now on. If you can tell me what it is you want to know, what's the fundamental situation there?
Mahesh bowing. So since we don't do shamatha practice, we only shikantaza. So like with shamatha practice, people have they develop this concentration, so the thoughts, they're not distracted as much.
Yes.
So for us, how does the getting distracted change as we sit?
It doesn't matter if you're distracted. The distraction is Mahamudra. Dzogchen. How do I know? I'm not a Dzogchen master. I don't have to be. I don't have to be a master of anything. Is there more? Am I missing, or is there some other area you're looking at?
Mahesh, yeah, I think nothing. I think that's what my question was about the distraction.
Just receive it. The distraction is the clarity, but it takes a while. Whatever is showing up is awakening, is enlightenment.
Mahesh point. So when I'm distracted, I cannot realize. Let's say I caught up in a thought and follow the chain. I spent, let's say, 5-10 minutes. During that time, I don't know, and I know after. So it's nothing I can do to observe or watch that. But when I come back, I continue to observe. So
yeah, it's just you're just describing the side of the mountain. You're going up your still path. You're on the path of awakening. It's just you have a lot of territory to go through yet. I'm not saying it's 50 miles or 500 years. I'm just saying you have more work to do. And I'm very biased in this area. I feel the work that you should be doing is hold still and watch the confusion, not try to get rid of it or cover it up or be not so confused. Receive at least on the cushion, receive the confusion. When you get off the cushion, whatever occurs, just relate to it as best you can. Be kind. Be simply put, just be kind to others. Be kind to yourself, and at the same time, get back to the cushion so you don't put your unexamined aggression, passion, aggression, ignorance onto others, onto the world around you. Be responsible for your feelings. There's no self there, so nothing can be harmed. The mind stream is there. The consciousness is here. Whatever comes in is fine. It won't stay long, more than likely.
Yuhong bowing.
Yuhong.
Is our Buddha nature similar to love? Bowing.
What do you mean by love?
That's also my question. The love is whether beyond the love we feel and receive.
Yes, it's so. Yeah, thank you. So the kind of love that has no demand, no grasping. Your love is just you just appreciate, love, and respect everything and everyone. So it's there's fancy words for that. I'm not going to use those, but it's just you're just with everything. You're no longer agreeing with, disagreeing with, or ignoring anything. So that kind of love, where everyone is the Tibetan, or not the Tibetan word, but the Buddhist teaching says that everyone has been your mother. So that might work for you unless your mother was abusive to you. So, but yes, just it's similar to that, very similar. But it won't necessarily be a feeling. You can have the feelings come and go. Awareness or compassion and wisdom does not go away. It has never appeared as a thing. So it has no, the fancy word has no ontological status as a thing. So it can't go away. It has not appeared, but it doesn't need to appear. It doesn't need to appear because it is this. It is, if anything at all, is the space in which things occur. Space doesn't do anything. Yes, Sanho.
Sanho bowing. The non-grasping love that you describe is how I experience this place and these people, and I wonder, is there a word for that you know of? Sanho bowing.
Well, the fancy word would be karuna, which is just love, unconditional love, not based on whether somebody treats you well, respects you, does anything for you, or you get your way with them. They just, that situation is just love. It's just giving, with not waiting around to see if I'm going to get paid for what I did. We just give. I just give. Everyone here does that as best they can. Everyone is here is training their mind. I'm actually training my mind. Nothing is separate. If a teacher is working with someone who is training their mind, they cannot be separate from that student and be some kind of special teacher person who's looking down on them. They have to be, if anything at all, they have to be not separate from that student. Otherwise, they don't know what's happening with that student. And so if you know what's happening with that student, you may know that you need to keep your hands off and allow that student to crash when saving somebody from something they need to run into. If I had teachers like that, I wouldn't be here. Both of my teachers let me crash. I'm grateful for that. Not because I needed anything, but I'm just glad I ran into that. Feel quite well favored. Thank you.
Yuhong Baoying.
Yes.
You also mentioned that our Buddha nature is spaciousness. And when I connect to that word, it's a mutual quality, does not really have the compassion. At least it's shown up for me. However, is that when I say love, I feel like there's still a connection. What I'm longing for, is that in my own grasping of this identity? Bowing?
Yes.
Thank you. Bowing.
Welcome. Jishin.
Jishin bowing. Do we all need to crash before we awaken? Bowing.
In some sense, but it's different with everyone. Everyone comes here with a different kind of, we call it baggage or karma, causes and conditions that even got you into this place, in front of this community, in front of this teacher, in front of this teaching. You can't plan this. It just shows up or not. And it may show up, it shows up to some people and they take a couple glances at it and then they leave. Several people have come here and I never see them again. Did they do something wrong? No, they got a glimpse. And that was not time for them to practice in this way. Not wrong. It's just the way things occur, just dependent origination. We have to be respectful of everything. And the way you can start to do that is be respectful of the shit or the crap or the confusion that arises in the mind. Don't do anything with it. Don't cover it up. Don't blame anybody, even though someone has triggered that and they are to blame for how you feel relatively. If you do that, you're just furthering your own confusion. It's not that person hasn't maybe even broken the law, what they did to you, stole something from you or tried to shoot you. Could be something horrible, but they aren't fundamentally, they're suffering too. That doesn't mean you have to go and baby them. No, they should be set aside or something should be done. But the hatred that can be triggered by that is It's just the very nature of confusion. The very nature of the world is just full of people trying to control other people out of their hatred for otherness, intense prejudice of all kinds. It's horrible, but you can't do anything about the world. It's a landslide. It's a tidal wave that's been happening way before any of us were born. And here it is, more of the tidal wave. I don't say ignore that, but I say get your butt to the cushion, sit down. Don't be a part of this chaos from the point of view of contributing to the confusion, the horror, and the torture, the greed, the bigotry, by fighting with it. Don't fight with it. Those people are suffering also. It's just that they're, what's the word? Cowardly. They can't stand to look at that, because that would mean there's something wrong with them, which is the very nature of ego, is to think that there's something wrong. Find out who you are. So you have no doubts. I have no doubts. I have no questions. That doesn't mean I know anything. I even claim I don't know anything. I only know what's necessary situationally. Sano.
Sano Bowen, how do you transform the bigotry, etc., without fighting with it? Sano Bowen.
How do you do what?
How do you transform it? How do you work with that energy without fighting with it?
Transform the energy right here in your heart center. Hey, here, you can hear that, can't you? Yeah, I'm pounding on a tabletop.
A very soft tabletop.
Yeah, I knew you could hear that. So transform this. And how do you do that? You look and see how confused it is. You see how confused your mind is, jagged around the edges. When it starts to rotate, it smooths out, and then all of a sudden all those spurs come back out again, and we're right back. And then you're lecturing yourself, "Why? I just got you sitting for a whole week and 8 hours a day, and all of a sudden I'm back to this, and why? It's because we have not seen deeply enough into the nature of reality, which shows up as our mind stream. You have to see this and witness it without agreeing, without objecting, and without shutting down. Those are the three. And what is the practice about? The path quality of ground, path, and fruition. Ground is suffering, the path is awareness, and the fruition is realizing what this is. Nothing left to do. You've seen it, you see it, you know it, you're not separate from it. You can't even see it because you're not separate from it. The eye cannot see itself. We're looking for results, that's ego. Wisdom doesn't look for anything. Wisdom just sees wisdom everywhere, all the time, constantly. When I say constantly, there's not even a clock on it. So it's not, even that doesn't work. It's just without time and space, even though the space is a great illusion to go out and look up at the sky and see how very, very far away everything is. This is an illusion.
Jason from Norway, Maine asks, so is thinking a tool rather than the boss? Really?
You could talk about it that way. Yes, it's a tool. And it can be, some people have jobs that require a lot of analysis and thinking, just like we have two attorneys here, Andy and Sano are both attorneys. You can't do that just like consciousness only, because the whole thing was created with thoughts and structures and ideas and concepts. And so you really need a lot of insight and analysis and a lot of really powerful attention to detail. But you can also train your mind. You can also take some time out of your day to sit down and just watch what arises in your own persona, your own personality. Yes, it's a tool. And for some people, a tool can operate, for instance, to say a visual artist. That the thinking process there somewhat takes a backseat, not completely, but takes a little bit of, to use that image, a backseat to the I consciousness, which is something I've taught about pretty extensively based on my own experience of allowing the seeing process, the witnessing of the I, seeing color, shape, texture, seeing that through I consciousness, to allow that to be the power instead of the thought process, which is probably what's happening with a chef who's really good. They're probably the sense of taste, the sense of smell, and the sense of seeing is probably very strong in that person, because that's what they're operating on. They're not thinking. If you created a what's that one, Mexican sweet rolls, if you tried to think about how to make Mexican sweet rolls, it would probably not work very well. But if you have a recipe, then you can just apply that, then is that going to work every time?
For me, it does.
Well, for you it does, because that's you're a cooker. So, yes.
Georgios asks, what are the attributes of observing?
So if I understand what you're asking about, it can show up in any of the sense fields, including the mind. To observe something, there's an object that arises in any of the 6 sense fields from thoughts in the mind, which you don't think thoughts. That's an illusion. That you are, there's an identity that's thinking the thoughts. There isn't one. Thoughts think themselves. Then you should not meddle with them, as Bardo Tulku once said, if you do nothing to thoughts, they will do nothing to you. So the attributes in the other 5 sense fields are pretty obvious, I think. Smell, fragrance. Some things are pungent, some things are pleasant and kind of seductive. There's a lot of difference between the smell of say vinegar and lilacs, but still fragrance. But we set up the polarity there. The same thing with pain and pleasure, which is one of the teachings in Buddha Dharma, that pain and pleasure are not separate from each other. They're both operating in the same area of nerve endings in the mind, or the feelings.
Ondovine, would you answer the same way if the question is, this is the question, what are the attributes of the observation? Bowing.
Observation is just to receive, no matter how it shows up. So really good question, because in the beginning, the observation, you're getting a credential for observing. If you're getting a credential for observing, this is not observing. This is getting a credential for observing. I'm an observer. This is ego. The ego structure is protecting itself. If you're really observing through any of the sense fields, you won't have a name for it. This doesn't mean that you can't tell the difference between lilacs and vinegar, or cat shit and dog shit. I mean, 2 very similar things that are different. Wouldn't you say? Yeah, different. So there's a discriminating awareness that comes up with all of that is not based on right and wrong, good and evil, or it's just a raw intelligence about the nature of that, and it receives it without adding any commentary on it. More? I could say more if there's more question in that area, or some other question. You take one more. Go ahead, please.
Jen bowing.
Jen, go ahead. We'll take your question, and then we'll retire to the 8 layer, or the whatever that other building is.
Right. Thank you. Along these lines, you said this discriminating awareness that arises is a raw intelligence about the nature of things. And what about attendant emotions that arise with thoughts, or I guess it's different from the awareness, but my question is, when a thought arises that has an emotion, is that a cover-up?
No, just something else to receive. Trungpa Rinpoche called emotions high-speed thoughts. So he differentiated somewhat, but even that is, it's very difficult to describe what even a thought is. I can't, if I have a thought about a pink air balloon, a hot air balloon that's hovering over the monastery right now, which most people can't see because I'm looking off the top of my head. But if I have a thought about that, that's a thought. But if I have an emotion about it, like suddenly, just say the air balloon burst or blew up and it came falling on the monastery, I might get pretty emotional about that. But so to differentiate between thoughts and emotions, I don't know how helpful that is. So we differentiate with concepts and words, but I think it's pretty much the same kind of structure. Anything arising in the mind stream as consciousness that is not directly connected to the nose, the tongue, the ears, the eyeball, the skin, All of that is a variation on what those are saying. Because that's how we learn about the world. Watch a 5-year-old learn about touch. Watch a 3-year-old learn about that there's gravity. I recently saw a video that was very cool of this little baby. It couldn't have been more than a year and a half old, who just probably hadn't been walking more than 3 weeks, and was walking on a glass floor where you could see it down into the next story. And the little baby walked out and just suddenly got freaked out because it realized that goes down. Whereas an adult might look at that and be a little bit moved by it, but they already know that glass is hard. It's not going to let them fall through there. And so they have a lot of thought processes that come around that, whereas the baby is more innocent, is really just learning what consciousness is like when it's downloaded into a body and has only been there for 3 years. So I'm not sure if all my chatter here is helpful to you, Jen, but it's to differentiate too much takes us away from the original insight that we could actually have about the nature of those consciousnesses. More?
Jen bowing. I think I'm understanding. If something arises, if an emotion arises, you receive that as well.
Yes. And the ego mind is, as long as the ego mind has some kind of power there, it's going to differentiate between thoughts and emotions. As you go along, eventually, ego's not interested in differentiating anything, because it's finding out that it no longer has any say-so about it. So it starts to get worn out. It's not getting any fuel. It's not having any fun anymore, creating chaos in your mind and in the consciousness. It's losing. It's not just losing control. It's seeing that it never had control, which is quite a disappointing thing. I don't have my disappointment cup here, but the path to awakening is full of disappointment. It's full of it. And so what's being said here is a spiritual path. So work with this. If you have a guide, if you have a mentor, if you have a teacher, if you have a guru, if you have that, work with whoever he or she is and receive that. Make sure it's somebody that you can trust. And of course, can you really trust anybody? I don't recommend it. Don't even trust me. I'm very untrustworthy. Okay, I think we're good and bad.
Hi, my name is Kozan, and I'm a monk at Sokukoji, where I practice with the guidance of my teacher Sokuzan. We rely on your donations to support our programming of practice, study, and teachings, and to fund scholarships that help our full-time practice residents with tuition and living expenses. Thank you for helping our sangha.